Under the unforgiving blaze of CNN's studio lights, the air was so tense it might as well have been barbed wire. Every camera lens was focused, every breath held. Across from each other sat two political firebrands, one a rising populist star, the other a seasoned warrior from the intelligence world. The stage wasn't just set for a debate. It was set for an ideological collision. On one side of the glossy black desk, Karoline Leavitt, 27, blonde, composed, wearing her signature navy blazer like armor. She adjusted her microphone with the ease of someone who had stood at the White House podium and taken on hostile press corps without flinching. Her eyes, cold and surgical, scanned the room, not for approval but for her next opening. The youngest White House press secretary in history, now running for Congress, she had built a brand on being unfiltered, unshaken, and unrelenting. Across from her, Cash Patel, 45, dark suit, darker eyes, and the calm precision of a man who had sat in rooms where lives hung in the balance. The son of Indian immigrants, former DOJ prosecutor, counterterrorism officer, and Trump's one-time national security advisor. While Leavitt exuded youthful confidence, Patel radiated quiet danger, the kind earned not in green rooms, but in war rooms. They were here to debate immigration and national security. What nobody expected was that the real battleground would be identity itself. The first few questions were almost deceiving in their normalcy. Anderson Cooper, CNN's seasoned anchor, asked about border surveillance and visa overstays. Both candidates delivered rehearsed lines and policy jabs. Nothing outside the norm. Then came the shift. "I just think," Leavitt said, her tone sharpening like a blade, "that we need to be led by people who truly understand what it means to be American. Instinctively. Not intellectually. Not from a textbook." It was subtle, almost deniable. But the silence that followed told another story. Patel didn't flinch, but the audience knew it had begun. Cooper moved on, trying to keep the tone civil. But Leavitt wasn't finished. "Maybe it's time," she added, her voice ice-cold under a practiced smile, "for some people to stop pretending they understand this country and go back to where they came from." A gasp cut through the studio like a slap. Patel sat perfectly still. Anderson Cooper's brow furrowed, and one of the camera operators audibly exhaled. America, watching live, did the same. What Karoline Leavitt had just said wasn't a dog whistle. It was a siren. A comment many would later describe as the most overtly racist statement ever made on national television in the middle of a primetime political debate. But the real shock wasn't what she said. It was what came next. Because Cash Patel didn't shout. He didn't rage. He didn't call for an apology. He looked directly at her, the corners of his mouth tightening just slightly. Then he leaned forward, folded his hands, and said, "Ms. Leavitt, I think you should be very careful about the road you're going down." And just like that, the atmosphere changed. Something ancient stirred in the room, something bigger than politics. Bigger than ratings. This wasn't a debate anymore. This was a reckoning. Because Cash Patel wasn't just going to defend himself. He was going to expose a truth about America that no one could unhear. And when he was done, only one person would walk away with their career intact. Cash Patel sat motionless for a moment, the weight of Leavitt's words settling in like ash after a fire. The studio was dead silent, no murmurs, no shifting chairs, just the hum of electricity and the subtle flicker of camera lights. Then he moved. Slowly, deliberately, Patel reached into the inside pocket of his blazer and pulled out a folder. Matte black. No labels. Just weight. Symbolic and real. "You want to talk about who understands America?" he said, voice low but carrying like thunder under glass. "Fine. Let's talk about it." The folder landed softly on the table with a quiet slap, like a gavel that hadn't yet struck, but would. "When I heard I'd be debating you tonight, Ms. Leavitt, I did what I've always done. I prepared. I studied. I gathered facts. Because unlike you, I don't rely on assumptions or sound bites. I deal in truth." Leavitt smirked, but the tension in her posture betrayed her. She wasn't ready for this. "My parents came to this country with nothing. My father worked 3 jobs, taxi driver, janitor, and night watchman. My mother cleaned buildings and babysat other people's children. They didn't ask for anything. They earned everything." He looked straight into the camera. "I didn't grow up in a gated suburb. I grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment where I slept on the floor until I was 12. And still, we believed in this country." The audience, visibly moved, leaned forward. It wasn't just policy anymore. It was personal. "I went to law school. Prosecuted terrorists. Worked undercover against cartels. I've risked my life in foreign countries you've only seen in briefing folders. I've bled for this country. I've buried friends who did the same. He turned back to Leavitt. And you, what have you sacrificed? She opened her mouth, but no words came. She was no longer in control. She knew it. So did everyone watching. You talk about instinct, he continued. You say some people are born understanding America. That it's in their blood. But let's talk about your blood. He opened the folder. Your great-grandfather, Thomas Leavitt, immigrated to the U.S. in 1892. After 2 failed attempts. Know who sponsored him on his 3rd try? An Indian-American businessman named Rakesh Malhotra. He gave Thomas a job and a roof when no one else would. Leavitt's face flushed crimson. Yes. The man whose descendant just told me to go back to India? Your family's very existence in this country is thanks to someone who came from where I come from. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Patel wasn't done. You say being American is about blood? Then you'd better thank mine. Because without it, yours might still be standing in line at Ellis Island. The studio was stunned. Even the crew stood frozen behind their cameras. And while we're on the subject of loyalty, he said, his voice suddenly softer, do you know what loyalty looks like? He pulled out a small laminated photo, grainy, sun-washed. This is me in Afghanistan, 2007. My vest was too big. My boots had holes. But I stood beside Americans of every color, every background. And when bullets started flying, no one asked me where my parents were born. They asked me to cover their flank. A long silence. Patel leaned forward. Real Americans don't talk about loyalty. They live it. And they don't use patriotism as a weapon to wound others. They use it as a shield to protect what's right. He closed the folder. The only sound was the soft exhale of an audience that had forgotten how to breathe. Anderson Cooper tried to regain control of the stage, but it was clear the debate had transcended television. This wasn't politics anymore. This was America staring at itself in the mirror, flawed, proud, defensive, uncertain. Karoline Leavitt finally spoke, but her voice lacked the clarity that had once made her a rising star. That was emotional. But emotional stories don't build policy. Cash Patel didn't flinch. No, they don't. But they reveal character. And policy without character is just noise. The audience murmured in agreement. For the first time, Leavitt looked small behind the desk, her carefully curated image cracking under the pressure of truth. You say I'm not a real American, Patel said, his voice now calm and cool again. But you know what's more American than ancestry? Choosing to belong. Fighting to belong. Earning it every day. He leaned back. You inherited your Americanness. I bled for mine. That line hit like a lightning bolt. Even some of Leavitt's supporters in the crowd couldn't help but nod. Cooper turned toward Patel. Mr. Patel, if you had one message to send to Americans watching tonight, immigrants, veterans, voters, what would it be? Patel paused, eyes scanning the audience, then the cameras, as if speaking directly into living rooms across the nation. America doesn't need more gatekeepers, he said. It needs guardians. People who protect the idea, not the image, of what this country stands for. I didn't come here tonight to win a debate. I came here to remind us all of something we've forgotten. You don't need to be born into freedom to fight for it. A standing ovation erupted. Not from one political side, but from Americans. People. Meanwhile, Leavitt sat in her chair, silent, almost reflective. The sound of applause didn't belong to her anymore. Her final weapon, division, had backfired. And Patel hadn't even raised his voice. Across the country, the reaction was immediate and profound. Veterans groups issued statements of support. Immigrant families posted photos of their grandparents on social media, quoting Patel's words. You don't inherit America. You earn it. Hashtags like #RealAmerican and #CashForTruth trended by midnight. Political insiders knew the impact was irreversible. Within 24 hours, 3 of Leavitt's major donors pulled out. Conservative commentators split. Some doubled down on defending her, others quietly stepped away. Campaign volunteers resigned. And in a telling move, her official website removed the America First by Blood tagline. But Patel didn't gloat. He didn't take a victory lap. Instead, he accepted an invitation to speak at an elementary school in Queens, where second graders, many the children of immigrants, had watched the debate with their civics teacher. He stood in front of them and held up that same laminated photo. This, he said, is what love for your country looks like. It's not about flags on your lapel. It's about the choices you make when no one is watching. It's about showing up, again and again, even when you're told you don't belong. A small girl in the front row raised her hand and whispered, "Are you a real American?" Patel smiled, knelt beside her, and replied, "Yes. And so are you." And with that, the man once labeled foreign-born walked off stage, not just as a conservative figure, not just as an immigrant success story, but as something far more powerful. A mirror in which the nation saw its best and worst selves, and decided which one it wanted to be. Because in the end, real patriotism isn't shouted, it's shown. And Cash Patel had just shown America its reflection.